Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt is a phenomenal product made by Monkey DM that I backed on Kickstarter many years ago. Heavily inspired by things like Lovecraftian horrors and Bloodborne, it brings a whole lot of horror and eldritch abominations to your D&D games, including new subclasses, new species, and a whole brand new class called the Jaeger. And one of these subclasses is for the fighter, and it's called the Living Nightmare. If you've been watching my live D&D game, Coins, Cards, and Crowns, live every Sunday on Twitch, you can check out the playlist here, then you'll know that one of my players, Jackson, is playing the Living Nightmare Fighter subclass. Because when I told him about it, he had great interest in it, and I thought it was a really cool subclass too. However, it did lack in some areas. But I told him if he really wanted to play this subclass, I would work on it and I would expand upon it and make it better. So I did, and this is what he's playing with now. Now, full disclosure, I still think the Living Nightmare subclass that is from the original book is incredible and very, very cool, but it is lacking in some areas, and that's what I aim to improve in my version. This is not meant to downplay Monkey DM's work at all. I think it's still phenomenal. I just really wanted to make this sprout more flower petals than the little rosebud it already was. That was a weird analogy, but we're going with it. Now, the subclass starts with 2 level 3 features. The first one being Awakened Mutation, and the second one being Eldritch Weaponry. Eldritch Weaponry is a very big deal, and we'll talk about it next. But Awakened Mutation is the first one. The original states that starting at 3rd level, the powers within your eldritch flesh begin to awaken. You forever lose proficiency with shields and heavy armor, as your ever-changing body cannot hold onto them. Your flesh hardens and your reflexes grow, empowered by otherworldly ichor. While you are not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 11 plus your dex modifier plus your constitution modifier. Now, my version of Awakened Mutation is very similar, with only slight differences here. You still lose proficiency with shields and heavy armor. However, I made it that while you're not wearing any armor, your armor class equals 10 plus your con or dex modifier, whichever is higher, plus your constitution modifier. My reasoning is that the original one made it so that your armor class could be more than 20, because it is not uncommon for a level 1 character to already have a 20 in one of their stats if they rolled exceptionally well and then picked bonus modifiers from either feats or their species or backgrounds. And having high armor class is very, very crippling for most encounters. If you are, especially at lower level encounters, if you already have an 18 or higher armor class, that's horrendous for combat. Nothing will ever hit you. Your common kobold or giant spider or goblin can fucking dream all they want of hitting that AC. It ain't happening. So I lowered it from 11 down to 10, and I also made it so that it was either 10 plus your strength or dex rather than 10 plus your dex. But now we get into Eldritch Weaponry, which is honestly the area I spent the most time improving. The original one states that at 3rd level, as a bonus action, you mutate your body, transforming it into various weapons of destruction. They count as simple weapons for you and add your strength modifier to the attack and damage rolls when you attack with them, as normal. When you use these weapons, you drop any items you're holding with those limbs. Some of the Living Nightmare features require your target to make a saving throw. The DC is calculated as follows. Your Living Nightmare save DC is 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier. So when you make an attack roll, you choose one of the 3 forms. The Stinger reads one of your limbs grows into a razor sharp blade. It deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. When you take the attack action to attack with it on your turn, you can use a bonus action to turn another limb into a stinger and strike with it, making a single additional attack. The Hammer Arm is your arms turn into a black tinted bone club. On a hit, it deals 2d6 bludgeoning damage, and you can choose to push the target 5 feet away. These I both kept the same in my version, but here is where I differed. The original Tenduous Lash states that one of your limbs replaces its bones with tough coiled ligaments, allowing it to stretch a disturbing distance without breaking. It deals 1d4 slashing damage on a hit and has a reach of 15 feet. In addition, the first time on your turn you deal damage with your lash, the target must succeed on a saving throw against your Living Nightmare save DC or be knocked prone as the limb sweeps their feet. I changed this from 1d4 slashing damage to 1d6 slashing damage on mine. Reason being, with the new edition, a lot of numbers have gone up in value. The healing spells heal a lot more, and a lot of creatures are a bit more hearthier, have higher AC, or just more health points overall. So I felt keeping Tenduous Lash at 1d4 would make it so that it would probably never ever really get used. And I think it's extremely versatile with being able to knock people prone as well if they fail the Living Nightmare DC. But I want you to be able to actually feel like you're doing damage with it rather than only a little bit of damage and hopefully knocking prone. Because at least if you don't knock them prone, but you hit a 5 or a 6 on the damage, it feels better that way than if you rolled max and got a 4. Alternatively, you can also transform your limb into a shield. Original one states whenever you're targeted by an attack that you can see, you can use your reaction to temporarily turn one of your arms into a fleshy shield, gaining a +2 bonus to AC until the start of your next turn. This is exactly the same on mine. But here is where we make the biggest changes so far, because the original one has this very dope idea. In addition, your Eldritch Flesh is capable of devouring some magic items to gain their properties. As part of a short or long rest, you can devour the following types of magic items, absorbing their properties. If you devour a rapier, its properties are added to your stinger. You devour a maul, its properties are added to your hammer. Devour a whip, its properties are added to your Tendwish Lash. And if you devour a shield, its properties are added to your Cinder Aegis. If you absorb another magic item of the same type, the previous magic item of that type is destroyed. And this is some of the coolest stuff the Living Nightmare has to offer, because you can't hold weapons anymore. Your body is the weapon, so you never get to benefit from getting those cool magic items anymore. But now you can just consume them instead, and then they become a part of you, so you get the magic items that way. But it is very limiting on what magic items you can get, because your stinger only benefits from eating rapiers, your hammer only benefits from eating mauls, your lash only benefits from eating whips. Now, I don't know how your D&D campaigns go, but the amount of times that my players find specifically a rapier, or specifically a maul, or even less specifically a whip is nil. And I just see a Living Nightmare subclass player being very limited in what items they can find and use as part of their own, abilities, when they're only limited to rapiers, mauls, whips, and then shields. So in my version, all the regular abilities are the same. However, any melee weapon that deals piercing damage can be consumed, and its properties are added to your stinger. Any melee weapon that deals bludgeoning damage, its properties are added to your hammer. And any melee weapon that uses slashing damage, its properties are added to your Tendwish Lash. And then any shield, its properties are added to your Aegis. Because then you don't feel left out when your party rolls across a bunch of loot and it's like, oh, we found a great sword. Oh, we found a long sword. Oh, we found a battle axe. And nobody really wants to use them, so they would go to the fighter, right? Not this fighter. I only can carry a maul, a rapier, or a whip. So just expanding it to be any piercing, bludgeoning, or slashing items. If you consume it, it goes to your stinger or your hammer or your lash, depending on what type of damage it does. After that, we get to Macabre Appetite, another area where I spend a lot of time adding stuff. And if you're playing old 5th edition, not revised 5th edition, then this change won't really matter to you, but I made this big change because we're playing with a new edition. So let me explain. The original Macabre Appetite states at 7th level, you can use the voracious hunger that dwells within your accursed body to devour the corpses of your foes and mend your flesh. When you stand within 5 feet of the corpse of a creature that has died less than a week ago, you can use your action to touch it and let your eldritch appendages devour it. You regain a number of hit points equal to the creature's CR. In addition, for the next 24 hours, you can use an action to assume the creature's appearance and voice. Though none of your game statistics change, you stay in the new form until you use an action to revert it to your true form or until you die. After 24 hours, or if you consume another creature, you lose the ability to take the appearance of the consumed being. Very cool, very dope. I slightly changed it, but it's still really awesome. The only thing I changed about my version is that the corpse must be mostly intact. You cannot use this ability on a single body part or half a body, for example. The original version just says corpse, which I assume means like the full body is so, but I just didn't want to run to a situation where my players would run into like a severed hand of a person and they give it to Jackson and Jackson goes, oh, this is a corpse, right? And just transforms into the person off of a hand. I was like, not enough. You need a mostly intact corpse in order to do this ability. I also added brand new stuff, which is where your Eldritch Weaponry now gains weapon masteries. Weapon masteries are a brand new thing in revised 5th edition. I think they're really cool. A lot of DMs think that they are not great, but I think they're pretty neat, and they give martial classes a little bit of extra oomph that they were severely lacking in previous edition. So, your stinger now gains the Vex property. When you hit a creature and deal damage, this master property gives you advantage on your next attack roll before the end of your next turn. Why'd I give it Vex? Because the stinger already lets you make 2 attacks. You hit once with your action, and then as a bonus action, you can hit again with your other hand as a stinger. Now at 7th level, because you have the Vex property, as long as you hit with that initial attack, you can now roll with advantage on your bonus action attack with the other stinger. Hell yeah, right? Next up, the hammer arm gains the sap property. When you hit an enemy with an attack, this master property inflicts disadvantage on your target's next attack roll before the start of your next turn. You transform your body into a giant hammer and you fucking crack them in the goddamn kneecaps. They're not going to be moving so well. They're going to have disadvantage on the next attack while they deal with their, fucking broken knees. And lastly, the lash gains the slow property. When you hit a creature and deal damage, you can reduce its speed by 10 feet until the start of your next turn. On top of that, this subclass was really missing out on a long-ranged ability, because the original version didn't let you devour bows or arrows or anything ranged-wise at all. Spears, javelins, all that, it wasn't even possible. So this was strictly a melee-only class, with the closest you got to range with being your lash, which only had reach of 15 feet. So I added a brand new Eldritch Weaponry, the Marrow Arrow. Your ribs fan out and puncture out from your skin, yearning for release. This attack has a range of 30 to 80 feet and deals 1d8 piercing damage on hit. If a creature dies as a result of this attack, you can use a bonus action to teleport to a space within 5 feet of the creature's corpse as your Nightmarish body calls for reunion. This attack has the push property. When you hit a creature, the creature is pushed back 10 feet if it is large or smaller. And then to tie that in with the consumption ability, any ranged magic weapon that deals piercing damage devoured by your Eldritch Flesh has its properties added to your Marrow Arrow. You can also consume magic ammunition this way, but only one ammunition can be stored this way and must be used on your next Marrow Arrow attack. In addition, when you consume a magic weapon as part of your Eldritch Weaponry ability, you may choose to replace your current weapon mastery with the one granted by the consumed weapon. If you don't, your weapon mastery remains as default. You can only change the weapon mastery when consuming a weapon with a different mastery than the one currently affecting your weapon. At the end of a short or long rest, you can choose to change the weapon mastery of any of your Eldritch Weaponry back to the original options. If you do so, you cannot change them again until you consume a new weapon with a different mastery than your default ones. So for example, if you really wanted to get sap on your lash, just find yourself a slashing weapon that has the slap weapon mastery property and whap, put that on there, and then you can give disadvantage on the prone target that you've knocked prone. Next up, 10th level, Ascended Being. I only added one thing to this one. The original states at 10th level, your Eldritch powers give you access to powers mortals could only dream of. Whenever you consume a creature with your Macabre Appetite, you also inherit all their memories from the last week before their death. I kept that the same. The exception being is that I inherited all their memories from the last 3 days before their death. 1 week just seemed like a really long time and a lot of memories to go through for a dungeon master, so I decided, 3 days is more applicable. The original also states, in addition, as a bonus action, you can grow a pair of Eldritch Wings, giving you a flying speed of 30 feet for 1 minute. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to your Constitution modifier, and you regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. I kept all that the same. The only thing I added was that you regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest, because not too many parties are taking short rests anyways, so I figured you might as well tack on the short rest as well. Unless your party is like Baldur's Gate 3, then you're short resting all over the place. But from my experience, my party doesn't usually take short rests very often. But now having the ability to get your Ascended Wings back after a short or long rest, it might encourage your party to take more short rests often. Now the second last ability is Nightmarish Weaponry, where I did not change anything with the exception that I had to add a new version for the Marrow Arrow. So the original states at 15th level, your body enters its next stage of evolution. The weapons you wield now have the power to annihilate all who stand in your way. Once on each of your turns, when you make use of your Eldritch Weaponry, you can strain your body to generate a more violent Eldritch power, replacing one of your attacks. For the Stinger, you can replace one of your Stinger attacks. Instead, each creature in a 30-foot cone in front of you must succeed on a Dex save against your Living Nightmare DC, or take damage equal to 3 hits from your Stinger. The Hammer Arm states you can replace one of your Hammer Arm attacks. Instead, you smash the ground below you, causing quakes and sending fragments flying. Each creature within 20 feet of you must succeed on a Dex saving throw against your Living Nightmare DC, or take damage equal to 2 hits from your Hammer Arm and be knocked prone. And the Lash, you can replace one of your Lash attacks, sweeping those around you instead. Each creature within 15 feet of you must succeed on a Strength saving throw against your Living Nightmare save DC, or take damage equal to 1 hit from your Lash and be pulled 10 feet in a straight line towards you, and then they are restrained until the start of your next turn. But because I added the Marrow Arrow, we gotta make a version for the Marrow Arrow. So what's mine say? Well, you can replace one of your Marrow attacks. Instead, you pick a point within 60 feet and rain shards of bone from your rib cage upon your foes in a 15-foot radius. All creatures in the area must make a Dex saving throw against your Living Nightmare DC, or take damage equal to 1 hit from your Marrow Arrow attack, and become poisoned until the end of their next turn. While poisoned in this way, they take 1d4 slashing damage if they move a minimum of 5 feet on their turn. If the creature moves 30 feet or more on its turn, it takes an additional 1d4 slashing damage. So effectively, you just kind of your rib cage and send shards in a big volley of arrow style, rain them all in a 15-foot radius on your target, and then any of those that are not saved against get lodged into their bloodstream effectively as tiny little shards of bone puncture and then all around them. And then as they move around, those shards of bone move within their body, causing more internal slashing damage. That's why they're poisoned. You know, it's the shards of bone in their body that's poisoning them. And you can use this feature a number of times equal to your con modifier and can't do so again until you finish a long rest. And then lastly, we got Eldritch Contamination, which is exactly the same in both my version and the original. Starting at 18th level, you can temporarily infect creatures with the nightmare that lives within you, turning them into puppets. You can cast the Dominate Monster spell, requiring no components, and your spellcasting ability for the spell is Constitution. Once you use this feature twice, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. The only difference would be the fact that you are now using the revised 5th edition Dominate Monster spell versus the old 5th edition monster spell. But that is the changes I made to the Living Nightmare subclass from Steinhardt's Guide to the Eldritch Hunt. Once again, I really want to send out a thank you to Monkey DM. I love this product and I've been obsessed with it ever since I got the box. I love everything he's done with this. And I really want to make it clear, I'm not saying I did a better job with this than he did, not whatsoever. I just saw some areas that could have used some improvement with this subclass, and I really wanted my friend to have a blast playing it and not feel limited by playing it. Because outside of minor changes here and there, I really only made it so that your Stinger, Hammer, and Lash could benefit from more weapon options than just a maul, a whip, or a rapier. And I also added the fact that you now have a ranged attack as well, because the original one didn't let you do any ranged attacks at any capacity. And that's the biggest changes I made, and then some minor tweaks here and there. And if you want to see the subclass in action, be sure to check out Coins, Cards, and Crowns live every Sunday on twitch.tv, link is down below. You can also check out the VODs here on YouTube, they go live every Monday.